main thing is, as Greg pointed out, we are in a community. And Christina will talk later about our effort to build a community. And I hope you feel this level of comfort coming in and staying here. And I want to make sure that you are aware that our gratitude and at some level admiration that you have been hanging on with us for such a long time. So as Greg said, it's not my first rodeo, and you know that I always like to take a historical viewpoint. So this time I went only back to 86. Sometimes 1986. Sometimes I will go back to 2,000 years. But the first deployment of Condor was in 86. And then we had, if you want, the first OSG all hands meeting was in 07. And we got the first HTC event, that is number 2 of it, we had last year. And so we are building on a pretty long tradition. Greg pointed out to me that our CVS of HT Condor goes back to 98. But there's still code that was written in 98 that is carried forward. So the major event of the last year was the funding. I would say more than just the funding, but the articulation of the Pelican project that is led by Brian Bockelman, and the funding of this project for 4 years. So it is about advancing the Open Science Data Federation. And since I said the word data, I don't want to go backwards. What the heck is going on here? Since I said the word data, I want to say no more talking about data. So Kevin Thompson, our project director from NSF, gives me continuously a hard time that I am on a crusade of terminology. So I am pretty proud that we managed to get some new terms adopted by the community: access point, execution point, focusing on the number of jobs rather than the core hours and stuff like that. So my current target is to stop talking about data, because and only to, before I give you the because, the only thing that exists in our world are buckets and objects. That's all we know. And the reason for that is that, at least as PASS is concerned and as OSG in our statement is concerned, our mission is to advance distributed high throughput computing, to advance the technology, to increase the adoption. I'm really pleased to know that there are some of the newcomers campuses attending. That's great. We want more of you here. And we are working hard at it. And since our focus is distributed high throughput computing, then we are not in the data business. It's great to talk about open data, and we do data, and we do data sounds good, but we don't do data. First of all, we don't understand data models or ontologies, and we shouldn't. We don't understand data structures, and we shouldn't. We don't understand metadata, although I claim that metadata is data, but that's a different discussion. And the key is that we, in our DHTC services, don't facilitate researchers to find the data. If Frank wants to find an event in CMS, we are not in the business of helping him find the event. That's somebody else's problem. And thanks God, in DHTC, we have enough problems to work on and to do them right. So let's stop talking about data, because we are not in the data business, and obviously I'm open to attacks from any direction. All we have to do is to deliver an object to the execution point so that the application can run on it. And I am sure that Christina can fill up the whole week telling you how difficult this task is and how many hate mails and almost verbal and physical attacks she sustained, where, what do you mean you didn't get my object to where it needs to be? So what we have is that when given a name, and I would encourage you to think about how AWS works. If you have an object in AWS, you have to give the object name, the bucket name, and the region, which is the, I will call it the object store name. And that's it. And then all we need is to deliver. And a key challenge that we are facing is DHT in the distributed environment is, how do we deal with failures? And I would argue we have a long way to go to deal with failures in this simple thing, which is the delivery. And my condolences for all of you who are still using CVMFS. And once we do that, and implementing Frank's vision of we are in the object delivery system, do we understand the reuse pattern? Because we can do a better job in delivering object if we understand the reuse. Are you going to use it once? Are you going to use it 100 times, 1,000,000 times over a time period? Do you need it for a class that has 500 kids that has to be ready at 10 in the morning on Monday, or whatever the profile is? We have to understand how the object, to keep our life interesting, we have to deal with authorization. How do we authorize access to objects? And some of our original users of the OSDF really didn't care about authorization too much, because the data, they barely understand what to do with the data. Who else can, with the content of the object? I should not use the, and we also would like to be able to monitor and report the access pattern to the object. So you will hear later this week we made quite a bit of progress in telling campuses or anyone who is running a CE what happened on your resources, who used it, which institution, which project, all that. I hope we will be able to stand here next year and tell you that we are making progress on object access. Who accessed this object? Not an IP address. An IP address lands you in the middle of the Atlantic. Which project used it? Which facility that is associated with this project did it, in the same way that we can tell you for a given job who did this. So that's where we would like to be next year. Now, keep in mind that objects are immutable. And that's not easy for those of us who grew up in the file system thing, and I can go in and change something and it changes everywhere and all the kind of thing. It is immutable. And the other part of it is that the names of the buckets and the object is managed autonomously by the object store. We are not in the business of managing these names. However, we have to manage the namespace of the object stores. So when an object store shows up in our ecosystem, it needs a name. And the name needs to be authenticated. So we know when we go there that we got the data from an object store that we know and love and care and trust. And to keep our life interesting, there are organizations that own several object stores. And they keep replica of objects under the same name in different object stores. The LIGOs of the world. And that brings in the opportunity of how do we manage access and delivery from these different object stores. Now, those of you who are getting into panic mode, as far as HT software suite, yes, we still do files and directories. TJ, don't take out the bazooka and start shooting around. Okay? Yes, we understand that there are workloads where people need to update their files and the names of the files or objects can change. And then we keep the same semantics that we had all these years in HTCSS. And I can tell you, going back to the black and white days, there was always a question when you place a job, do we copy everything in your sandbox to another place that so that the semantic is that we run the job with the data and the executable at the time of the placement, not at the time of the execution. When somebody submits 500,000 jobs, it becomes a little bit dicey to copy all this to another place and then to clean it up, and we moved away from it. But even today, it is a challenge. I placed my job and the job didn't run because my input directory was deleted. Right, Rachel? Never happened to any of your users, right? What do you mean? I mean, I placed the job. Why do I have to keep the input? Don't you take it with you when I placed it? So, but for the object delivery of the OSDF, because we want to do caching and all the kind of thing, Netflix doesn't support updates to the movie while you are watching it. Oh, this frame is not a good one. Let me give you another one. It's immutable. And it has implication on the way that we manage. So if we had, or I would take it had to start it all over, and Frank, Brian, and I coined OSDF when we submitted the pass proposal. Before that, we didn't have the acronym of a federation on data, if my memory is correct. If I had to do it all over again, I would have called it the OSOF and not the OSDF, but that's already water under the bridge, and we have name recognition and value and all the kind of things. But I think we have to recognize that we are in the object business. So enjoy the week. Tell us how we can do better and different. And we even have 2 minutes for questions. Thank you.